Let me place you in the shoes of an average poker reg. You're playing live poker and the table is juicy. There are two players sitting right beside you who are playing 80% of their hands. The first player, he's obviously drunk. He is down 5 buy-ins. The second player, he's having fun, he's also had a couple drinks, but surprisingly, he's up. In fact, he is up a most amount of money at the table. You play, and the first player keeps on losing, but the second player does not. And it dawns upon you, after some time, that he is not the fish. You are. Obviously, this is no normal game. You're playing 20% of hands, and he is playing 80. Mathematically, you should have an edge, but you don't. He seems to be bluffing so much, yet every single time you call, he flips over a better hand. You feel powerless. You should be crushing, but you're not. And there is a very, very good reason why. Let's break poker down to see what many of us are doing wrong. In essence, the aim of poker is to crush. You need your opponents to pay you when you have a strong hand, and you need them to fold when you have a bluff. Most players are remarkably bad at doing this one simple thing. Instead, we have this weird idea of what poker is supposed to be played like. It's as if at high stakes, players are just remarkably good at playing Nash and nothing else. But let me assure you, if you sit down at a high stakes table, the regs there will not be playing Nash against you. That winning player from that table I told you at the start, for instance, is an actual high stakes pro. His name is Mihai, and while he understands Nash very well, he usually doesn't play it. He really does play as wide as 80% in some live games, because he understands that his opponents are making highly exploitable mistakes all over the game tree. But the difference between him and the average reg is not that he's playing more hands. Instead, he is able to play more hands because he's doing two things a lot better. I will teach you both of these things, and if you learn to do them well, you will crush just like he does. When Mihai has a strong hand, his goal is to get paid. But unlike Mihai, I've seen some Twitch streamers with hundreds of viewers who do not have this goal. Maybe they understand it, but they don't seem to be following it. They seem way too focused on trying to mimic Nash. They're way too concerned with mixing sizes, checking the right amount. And when I see this, I don't see a player who understands poker, because they don't understand the rules to the degree that allows Mihai to break them. For instance, Mihai knows that sometimes the Nash solution does not bet big enough. For example, consider this spot. We're playing button versus big blind in a single raised pot. We hold ace-5 of diamonds, and the flop is jack-9-4 flush draw. A lot of players will bet small on this flop, the turn is a blank, and many players will go with a 75 to 100% pot size bet here. We're not going to worry about the flop and turn size too much, we're instead going to talk about the river. Now the river is a fantastic card for us, the 7 of diamonds. Now there's 20 big blinds in the pot because we bet too small in the previous streets, and there's 90 big blinds in our stack. What size should we use here? We should use all in for 4.5 times the pot. The solver uses this size sometimes, but we need to use it always if we want to get paid. This is because the rules at the table differ highly from the rules in the book. Simply put, the rules in the book necessitate that we should carefully craft every aspect of our strategy with resilience in mind. Solver is a ruthless killing machine that will pulverize us the moment we even make a slight frequency mistake. But at the table, the rules are very different. Your opponents are just like you, predictable and afraid of losing money. They could exploit you by raising ruthlessly versus your smaller overbets, but they won't. And because they won't, it's up to you to bet massive with your strong hands. Now you might be thinking, if I go all in with ace-5 suited here, won't my opponent just fold? The mistake here is not understanding that it is you, not your opponent, who decides if you get paid. Good, aggressive players like Mihai will get paid with their strong hands, while weaker, timid players will not. And the solution to become a good, aggressive player is easy in theory, but hard in practice. The solution is simply to bluff more, but the hard part is to bluff correctly. Mihai understands that the purpose of bluffing serves not one, but two important functions. Bluffing, done well, wins money. But much more importantly, bluffing well forces your opponent to overcall you when you have a strong hand. There's a specific way to bluff that accomplishes this. But first, let's examine how most people bluff to see where they fall short. Let's go back to the nut flush example. Assume for a moment that your opponent will not bluff catch you very often if you go all in. Most players will take this as a sign to start bluffing more, which sounds great in theory until your opponent starts to overcall. All of a sudden, your value outperforms, which helps you get paid, but now you cannot bluff because your bluffs lose more chips than your value hands gain. Now, there's not very much you can do. If you stop bluffing, your opponent will stop calling and your strong hands are no longer getting paid. You could try to remain balanced, but even if you could, by doing so, you would actually eliminate any edge you might have had in this spot. Poker is about pressure, and if you choose to play balanced, then it doesn't matter what your opponent does with their bluff catchers. They could call, they could fold. By making both options equal EV for them, you're eliminating their opportunity to make a mistake. Mihai doesn't play balanced, and he certainly doesn't stop bluffing either. But here's what he does differently. He bluffs selectively in two ways. First, he carefully considers the board texture when he's bluffing. He bluffs recklessly on the textures where he knows his opponents are more likely to overfold, and he stops bluffing entirely versus some opponents on textures where he knows his opponent is more likely to call. By doing this, he's able to keep an aggressive table image, but still win chips in most spots when he bluffs. He's able to do this because he's more effective at studying than his opponents. Consider this board as an example. We're playing as small blind versus button as the pre-flop 3-better. We hold Queen 10 of hearts. The flop comes 8-5-3 flush draw, and we bet 2/3 of the pot. The turn is the king of clubs, and again, we bluff with 2/3 of the pot. The river comes the 3 of clubs, a complete blank. The way that many players would study this spot is by trying to learn what hands are good bluffs on the river. But Mihai, he studies this spot by looking primarily at his opponent's response. And when he sees that his opponents in this spot should be calling as wide as their ace highs versus a jam, he knows that this is a terrific spot to bluff. When Mihai finds a good spot to bluff, he bluffs it aggressively. Remember, he's winning money there because although his opponents will call him, they won't call him enough. And this helps him build that aggressive table image, so that when he does get into a spot where the calling threshold is much higher, he can bet his value for a very big size, sit back, and watch the money roll in. He's not balanced on any texture, but boy does it work. Additionally, he's selective with his bluff size. When Mihai bluffs, he's more likely to be using a slightly smaller size. Even if his opponent overcalls, the price he pays here is an investment in his table image. Maybe his opponent really does call him with ace highs in that previous hand. The amount of money he loses in that spot is negligible compared to how much he will win when he finds that perfect spot to go all in with the nuts. And because his opponents think he's a maniac, they always end up calling. And if they're playing live poker, they scratch their heads and wonder why they're losing all of their money to someone who's playing 80% of hands. To be able to bet big with your strong hands is incredibly easy. But to bluff big with laser-like accuracy and with well thought out intent is very, very hard. There's no cheat code. It comes with experience and with study. But my content is here to help. My other videos break down some of the most crucial theoretical concepts that will help you learn when to apply the right amount of pressure. My Discord, link right down there below, is the place where I'll be reviewing hands and sharing materials that I've developed over my entire professional career. I'm posting videos regularly now, and so the best way to learn from them is to subscribe, click the bell, and join my Discord. I have a lot of stuff that I'm working on, and I'll be creating a lot more content soon. Join the Discord, and I will see you guys later.